we go.
Let's go. Let's go. How you like the gear?
What's that?
How you like the gear?
Hey, I love it. I didn't even notice it. I just saw the top of it. That's nice right there. I appreciate the support, man.
Let's go. We gotta rock it. All right.
Yeah.
So
Appreciate that.
well, I got everybody else on mute. And we'll bring on and ask some like questions in a little bit. I'll tell you, I'll tell you the first day I met Keenan was awesome. Like that, like we spent some time on the phone talking a little bit. And then I'll never forget like the first time I met you, because it was like you come to the gym. Obviously, you're in your uni because you just come back in from the yard. You're like, things are hopping. We didn't know that you were coming in that day. I was like, all right, cool, let's go. And then, handshake, 2 minutes. You go do your workout. And you're like, yeah, I got to roll. I'm like, what do you mean you got to roll? Like, you got a meeting at the Capitol. You got a meeting with the president. I'm like, okay, well, I fit into this mix.
Yeah, I remember that day. I remember it just being insane traffic, trying to leave your gym, get back down to D.C. for the State of the Union. And I was late. I was supposed to meet a congressman. I'm late to meet the congressman. I'm like, man, this is all a bad idea. Like, I drove all the way out to Chantilly to go I didn't even do anything. I literally walked through the gym and was like, what's up? And then it was like, all right, I got to go. I was like, it took me an hour to get here. And now I got to wait another hour to drive back down to D.C.
So, I think that it's a good story because the relationship didn't change. Literally, it was like that for a very long time, where you're cramming 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. It was just like everything that you did since the day I met you was literally taking what somebody thought was impossible and saying, okay, well, the only way that is possible is that we take, what we're trying to do and take 24 hours and literally make 3 days out of one day, every single day for 3 to 4 months with the uncertainty of what was going to happen anyways. And that was just who you are. Everything that you did, you just figured out a way to make something happen. So it's an interesting kind of like transition into this conversation, because that's how it started. And I don't think if that's ever changed, at least since I've known you. Like, you've always tried to, people have said, like, that's impossible. People have said, like, that's not really something that can be done. It hasn't been done. And yet you just keep proving other people wrong, not by, that being your primary interest, just because you had your own ambitions and you had your own goals. So something I absolutely admire about you. And I think that's what it takes to be at that level. So I guess I'll get right into it. Like, how did you end up at the Naval Academy? I mean, obviously you had a hell of a career there. Get drafted, you're in the NFL, you've been around a few teams. It's still interesting to see kind of where they find you in as far as the role, because you are an athlete, and sometimes you've been on teams where you could spin the rock better than them. But it's about knowing your role, understanding that responsibility. So, and I'll be the first one to say that. I mean, look, we had 2 quarterbacks in that room that year, and both of them, got a shot in the league. And I laugh because I think to myself, I'm like, sometimes I don't know who should be catching the ball, who should be throwing it. But that's for them to decide, because they're the ones who were stroking the check.
Yeah.
And again, I find myself a little bit emotionally attached to the process in this situation more than in others, just because I understand, what you put yourself through. And I don't think many people see it. They get to see the highlight video. They see the game. They see the pretty uniform. It's a nice tagline, like your career. It's a nice tagline for a lot of people to write stories about, but they don't know what it took to get there. So that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit today, because there was moments where, like, the first thing I told you to do was like you need to just go take a nap. Like,
yeah, go sleep. Go sleep. Yeah, man. Getting there, honestly, like, Naval Academy wasn't even like on my radar until my junior year. I think I filled out like a questionnaire, and this was in the archaic days of recruiting, when they send paper envelopes, and you fill out your questionnaire and you send it back, and you hope that the coach or whoever send you a handwritten. And that was like the standard. Like, if you got a handwritten letter, that means that they really liked you. And I think I sent my questionnaire in, and I didn't even think about them. And then spring practice, going into my senior year, so like the spring of my junior year in high school, the coach, Ashley Ingram, he's still coaching there to this day. One of the best recruiters, I think, in college football because of his track record. And he was like, "Hey, listen, we don't really care how tall you are. We just want to know, can you move? Can you run? You're the right size, the right fit for our offense." And I was like, "All right." And then I said like the end of April maybe of that year, they called and offered me. And so I'm like, yes, I got my first offer from Navy. Let's go. They're gonna start rolling in. And then I didn't get my next offer until October. And I went to camps. I did stuff in the summer. And everybody always said, like, once you get one D1 offer, like they're gonna keep coming in. So, I kind of felt I felt a little slighted because I didn't get the next one until October, and that was Air Force. And then after Air Force, I didn't get any other offers until the end of the season, December, at the Tennessee All-Star game. I got an offer there from a FCS school, and then a school that had never heard of me saw me playing receiver, and they were like, "We want you to play quarterback for us." It was Wofford College, and I ended up getting that offer. And so, long story short, went on my recruitment visits, ended up settling on Navy. Just from a fit standpoint, it felt right. You never really, when you're making decisions, and I'm kind of in a similar position right now, but when you're making decisions, it's really hard to find something that's 100% perfect for you. You just kind of have to find the place where you feel the most comfortable, because wherever you go, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be good and bad, pros and cons. But whether or not you can weather that storm of the pros and the cons and the ups and downs would depend upon the culture of the place that you're in. So that goes in with anything from school to business to life to your partner that you marry. There's going to be ups and downs, but if there's no culture, there's no cultural fit where you're at, it's not going to work. So it doesn't matter how good or how bad it gets. So it just felt right from that standpoint. And so I get there, and then, obviously things work out the way they did. But, I think one thing I went into that place with that really helped me kind of get on my way was I had a singular goal. And I'm the type of person, the more I've, really done more self-reflection and thought about it, you have to have a singular goal no matter what happens that's going to keep you focused. You go through Navy, you got all the BS of being a plebe, and you got no music, can't listen to music, just the craziest stuff that you could think of. And I just didn't really care about that because my singular goal at that time was I'm going to be the starting quarterback as a freshman. So it allowed me to deal with the BS that I had to put up with that everyone puts up with their first couple of years at the Naval Academy. And so that's like, I was reading the questions that, you posted, what it takes to be great time after time again. And I was thinking about like, how would I answer that question? And my answer is you have to have a driven purpose. And it has to be so ingrained in your psyche and your being that nothing matters outside of it. And I don't mean that like you don't care about other people or you're not empathetic to people's situations. I'm saying that things that could happen to you, that could set you back, that could put you forward, none of that matters until you get to that place. And until you can continually find those type of driven purposes in whatever it is you do, it's going to be tough for you. It's going to be hard for you to stay consistent. It's going to be hard for you to wake up in the morning and put in the extra work. So, that's a start for me, and I know that people are going to ask questions. You want to ask questions for the other people on the call. But the one thing that I want to leave y'all with, and I'm leading off with it to drive home the importance of it to me personally, is have that singular purpose. And so now I'm in a place in my life where the NFL was my like singular purpose growing up. Like that was like, I have to make it there regardless. And I did. And I can't even tell you how many people were counting me out or saying, well, you're in the Naval Academy. I mean, even at the school, saying what, almost to the point where I almost doubted that I could make it myself. But at the end of the day, I made it there. And I found that what drives me is unobtainable, lofty goals. I know that sounds crazy because everybody always says make the goal achievable, right? Like make the goal something you can like materialize as act so you don't fail. But the way I see it is if I aspire to something unobtainable, if I land short, I'm in a pretty dang good spot. And then every now and then you accomplish that unachievable, that unobtainable. So for me, I accomplished what was quote unquote unobtainable by getting to the NFL and playing in the NFL. So why can't I do that again in a different arena? Or why can't I find another goal that's equally as quote unquote unobtainable to accomplish?
Absolutely. And I think that, what's interesting is, just being around you, like spending days with you, you have that with your like macro view. You have your goal that's here. And I get that. That's your North Star. That's your driver. And I know that's what you want. But you break that up into moments that say, okay, here's some things that are going to help me get there. And that competitive spirit. Like you are one of everybody that I know that is at that level of 1% that I deal with. And there's not very many of them. That's why they're the 1%. They're the level of competitor inside them that they create, whether it be, even just playing cards or joking around or playing ping pong, it's just at another level, right? And it's like, if I put a clock on you, it's like, that is unacceptable. It's like, well, I want to beat that. Like if there was anybody's name above you, you wanted to knock it down. And I think that it wasn't so much about beating somebody else. It was that proving to yourself that you belong and that you are at that level constantly. You did that with everything. You're like, okay, what does that number need to be? What does this number need to be? And you showed up every single day with this agenda around this competitive spirit. And so like, does that go back to like when you were younger? Like obviously there's a gap between you and your younger brother, right? But was that like with your dad? Is that with your family? What was the thing that drove you when you were younger?
It was definitely my dad. I was actually telling my fiance this story not too long ago, and I will say, I'm gonna say this much: the way that what it takes to be at that level, it comes with some baggage as well. And I don't want. And one thing I'm proud of myself on is being completely and transparent with people and starting to know we got a lot of young guys, whether it be high school, college. You need to understand what's gonna come with it. Like you got to pay a price. There's going to be times of doubt. Like as much as you push yourself and are as competitive as you are, you're going to have probably equal or more times where you doubt yourself and you feel like you don't belong. You feel like an imposter just because of the nature of what you're trying to accomplish. So with that being said, to answer your question, my dad started early on. I never forget. I was like 5 or 6 years old. I was playing quarterback, starting or whatever. And I guess it was some new kid that was supposed to come join our team. And he was like, hey, man, got this new guy, Rico. He fast as lightning, man. I don't know. He's going to take your spot. And so I'm like, man, hell no, he ain't taking my spot. So that like drove me. And once he saw at such a young age that like made me just get into a hyper-focused, hyper-competitive mode, he just continued to use that as a driving force. And it helped me get to where I am. But having said that, it does come with everything has its cons. So it does come with those moments of doubt, those moments of insecurities where you don't really you don't think you're good enough. But I would contend if you can understand how to deal with that and understand that that's a part of the process and not tie your identity on that, you can use it as continued motivation. So you can continue to draw upon your own insecurities to continue to motivate you to climb higher.
Well, it's also that like you're constantly trying to be at this high standard every single day. There's a lot of pressure on yourself that you put on that. If you don't make it, like, what does that mean? Is that a direct reflection to the outcome that's going to happen as far as your goals and what you're trying to aspire? So sometimes that's where the insecurity then kind of gets created, is within that
right.
anxiety where you're overthinking this small little piece of your day. And is that the reason? Is that going to be the thing that's going to make or break your long-term picture? And sometimes you just got to push past that. Whether like everybody goes through like their bumps and the bruises, the things that bother them. Like the thing that impresses me the most about you is like you were so unaware of your body at the elite athlete level because of what you were, the mindset that you were required to be in because of where you were, where it was like, anybody else that I work with, like they're not. I remember like when you and Swain came in, I look at your schedules. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like that's it. Like you guys should, you guys are still doing shifts. Like, are you kidding me? Like the amount of stress that I'm going to put on your body in this session needs a 10-hour rest. Like you need 10 hours just to sleep. You're not getting 3.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do we do? Well, we couldn't, we can't bitch and moan and complain about it. We have to do what we can. So,
right.
we had to like make adjustments for that. And then the hardest part for me was like, well, I can't really tell you that means I have to back off. Because if I even told you I was going to back off, you were going to look at me like, you're not going to back off. Because
Right.
it's kind of like you were just the pedal to the metal guy. Your dad, your mom, I don't know who's more full speed, your mom or your dad, frankly. But you get that drive from somewhere. You have always kind of, even at the high school level, getting into college, you've had to prove a lot of people wrong, and I think that's a big thing when you have these lofty goals, because there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to be, they're fans of when you win, but they forget really quickly what you've done for them if it doesn't support them right now.
Absolutely, and one thing I'll say about them, the people that doubt you, is it takes a long time to realize this, and it's a constant battle. But the people that are speaking negative, and they're not even trying to be negative, that's one thing. First of all, you have to understand that everything they say to you is a projection of how they feel about themselves. Every negative remark, every doubtful advance, whatever it may be, it's simply a projection of how they would feel if they were in your shoes pursuing what you're trying to pursue. So that took a lot to realize, and it's still an ongoing battle to understand and realize. And once you do that, then like you said, those insecurities, you kind of ease up on yourself from a standpoint of, you know what, like, I'm going after some heavy stuff. Like, this isn't just your average Joe that wakes up and goes to sleep for 20 plus years. Like, I'm going after things that people don't even think about, people don't even dream about. When you realize that, then you start to ease up from a standpoint of you don't beat yourself up for every little mistake. You just continue to grind on the process, and then it becomes more productive. Like you go further, and when people speak negatively on you and people talk down on you, it doesn't even bother you. It just washes off. You know what I'm saying? But that's a mindset you have to maneuver to. That's a mindset you have to accept. It's like, hey, listen, people are projecting. Don't project your insecurities on me. And I'm not saying you got to go around telling people they're insecure. I'm just saying it's something you have to understand and just think about. Like, if people would kill to be in some of other people's positions. Like, if you're a young college athlete, people in your peers that aren't athletes that may be speaking negatively about you would kill to be in the situation you're in, would kill to have the attention that you have. And when you realize that, then you understand how blessed you are to be in that position. You're grateful for it. And as a result, it just drives you even more, because you're like, man, I'm so lucky. I can't be lazy. I can't not work hard, because so many people wish they could be here. So I have to put on for those people. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I would say the best way to deal with, the doubters and the pressure that may be from outside of yourself.
Yeah. So you go from, high school, you go to the academy, you have the single goal of like, you want to be the starting quarterback. You earn that job. You break every record, you break every record. You break every NCAA record. You break, you break the quarterback record. You break the rushing record. Here you are, and you are there. Now if I look on the wall in my office, and the signature on our wall, there's a word next to it, which is your nickname. No. And I took that one personal. Like, that was mine. I gave it to you, but I took it personal because I understand how many things did you have to overcome just to get to that opportunity. And then when it was a not even playing field, the fact that you still beat them at the game when the rules and everything was stacked against you, and then to get snubbed out of the Heisman and get snubbed out of that kind of like process because of, as crazy as it sounds, in the role of where you're coming from, it's political agendas in sports, right? Yet you don't let that affect you, right? You go on, and this is, obviously having a historic, football career at the college level, pre NFL draft, there was no precedent set yet for somebody in your position to be able to do that, So what you were doing was impossible. Like, there wasn't anything done. There was nothing written that said this was going to be okay. You're going to be allowed to go through this path, but yet you still pursued it. Meaning that you worked all the way up until combine. You worked all the way up until pro day, working all the way up Senior Bowl, for East-West Shrine Game, all of that. You worked all of those things. And yet draft day comes and graduation comes, and we still don't know that it's possible for you to still get there, even though you've earned it. What kept you going, even though it was not fair, number one, because life isn't, but it was like the road previously was set up for people that are not in your shoes?
Well, I think what kind of kept me going, and what really, let me back up. The thing that helped me really get to that point was relationships, and that's something else I want to attest to the young people. Relationships are so important in this life, and you might hear your parents say, or people you know say, it's not who you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that is so true, and it's really crazy to kind of see it work out that way. I remember a distinct conversation I had with Secretary of the Navy, Army Navy. He looks at me on sideline for the game. He says, "Hey, Keenan, if you get drafted, we're going to let you play." I said, "Okay." I said, "You told me what I need to do, get drafted, so I'm going to do it." So everything that I heard up until that point, I didn't even worry about. Whether it was people saying, "Well, I don't think it's going to work out," or we had meetings with the academy people, and they were like, "Well, these are your options. We don't really have a plan in place. Like, you could, take a sabbatical, but you're going to owe double the time. You could just forfeit your commission. You could do, 2 years active and then play." Like, and I'm like, okay, like all this was cool. We had a guy that was playing, but his situation was so crazy that they were like, "We're not doing that anymore." So he didn't even know if he was going to have to go back to the fleet and play, and wouldn't be able to play. Fortunately, he's still in the league now, but at the time, he was like, when I was talking to him, he was like, "Bro, I don't even know what they're going to do. Like, they said I can't do the double duty anymore, because that's what I thought I was going to have to do." He was like, "I can't do double duty anymore. Like, I might have to actually go back and serve and then come back and try to play again." I was like, so it was a crazy time. But I just remembered what the Secretary of the Navy told me to my face and told my parents. And I was like, you know what? Until somebody that's high up says no, I'm just going to keep grinding. I'm not going to worry about what I can't control. I'm going to just keep grinding. And fortunately, after I got drafted, I was like, well, I held up my end of the bargain. Like, I did what I needed to do. So now it's on them. And it was a lot of press. It was a lot of different things that fell into place. And I think a lot of that has to do with relationships, and also, now that I think about it, like reputation, and really taking care of your name, really taking care of how you interact with other people, and what people, what you're known as, the type of person you're known as, the integrity, the honor, whatever. That's important, and it'll take you a long way, a lot longer than cutting corners and being shady will. So, I think a combination of those things and knowing what I knew just kind of kept me on the path. And funny thing you mentioned about the snub, I got my revenge actually, because I was on the stage with Derrick Henry after he won a Heisman at the Sullivan Award, and I beat him, and I won the Sullivan Award. So that was cool with me. I beat him. So I was like, well, at least somebody recognized what was going on.
Well, I think a lot of people know that. So, it's interesting. So you go through your, your senior year. I talk about relationships, which is crazy. You went down for your bowl game, like for as a senior, without East West Shrine game, right? You go down there, and I think you're like, I remember. So it was, I think it was Charlie Weiss as your coach.
Yep.
Right. And I remember like the conversation. I'm talking to scouts, right? I'm saying, "Hey, this is the situation. I need you guys be honest with me up front. Like, I never play a political game with a kid's career. I think I know what I could do with them, because of my years of experience, but I'm not writing the check. So you tell me where you want them. Hey, we think he's a running back. We really do. We think he's a running back. We think he's, we don't know where he's going to be as a quarterback. I'd like to see him there, but he's probably going to be a running back. There's no chance he's playing wide receiver. It's just not happening. We've seen him move. He doesn't have hands. He just can't run routes. He's never done this before. He's a running back." Like, all right, cool. So he goes down there, and I think your coach was Mike Allstock, right?
Yeah.
And I call, so I'm laughing because I'm like, my coach in high school was Mike Allstock's coach. It was Tony Nathan.
Mm-hmm.
You guys remember like the book, like the movie Woodlawn, like with Bear Bryant's first like black recruiting class, like the guy that movie was about, the hook and lateral, Tony Nathan going in the end zone with the Miami Dolphins. That was my personal coach. And I was like, I got to get a feel for what they think about this kid, which is you. Cause we didn't have that much time together. It was like a week before. Mm-hmm. And like everything kept coming out, like just the type of kid he is, just the type of leader he is. Like, we're going to find a spot for him. We just don't know what that looks like, because there's just not enough data. Nothing supports this path. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you go down there, you go, running back, you ball out in their practice. Like it was the Keenan Reynolds show, right? End up not getting a full opportunity because, everything that was going on for that game. Then you would come back and we have to recalibrate what the game plan is. And, they look at you as a receiver now, and you come out and you go all the way through your pro day. But people don't even know, like, the work that you put in going into pro day. Like, you would come in from a full shift, Fridays, drive down, hour and a half. We worked for, I don't know, probably until 10 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then you, hey, get some sleep. We'll do it again. I mean, I remember sometimes we were in the building till midnight. Just we only had this hour, 90-minute window to get work in, and then you drive all the way back for your shift, and then start all your work week over again while you're in school. Meanwhile, everybody else that they're comparing you to, everybody else is literally on a paid vacation in Arizona, right? Because I used to be I've started in Miami. That's where I'm from. So it was easy to get on a guy with a combine class when I first started my career. It was easy. It was look, you're from Wisconsin, right? Do you want to go train there, right? Or you want to go Miami, 10 minutes from the beach, right? It didn't matter how good I was as a coach. I might have had the best athletes, but it was really easy. So, to get someone to train in Northern Virginia, it had to be a little unique situation. But that's what everybody's doing. Everybody in your shoes is literally out on a paid 12-week vacation, getting ready for their pro day, right? Which is basically just a formality for a lot of them. And in your shoes, it's a make or break. And meanwhile, you didn't even get the same cards to actually train properly. So you do all of those things, but then the week leading up to your pro day, I don't think people understood the travel restrictions, the travel demands. You're in Connecticut, you're doing stuff at ESPN, you're coming back down. And then they expect that you're supposed to go run an Olympic game, right? An Olympic race, basically, when you've been pretty much on this kind of carousel of media tour for other people, not even for you.
Yeah.
A lot of that is just the work you put in. That's just straight work ethic.
Yeah, that leading up to pro day was rough. There was a lot going on, like you said, media stuff, trying to balance, not getting in trouble for not being in school, getting back on time from Virginia, signing my accountability stuff. And then what a lot of people really don't know is the week of pro day was our spring break. So I finally got to go home for a couple of days to just relax and kind of stay tight. You told me what to do to stay trained. And then 2 days before I was supposed to fly back, my dad gets sick. He's in the hospital. And to the point where at the time they were, they didn't know if he was going to make it. Fortunately, it all worked out. So you add on all what we had already been going through and what you talked about, and you add on the stress of dealing with that and being uncertain. And my dad had always been in my corner, every game, every event, he'd always been there. And so now I'm about to go to my biggest, this is the biggest point in life, and Pops is laying in a hospital bed. So, he's being a tough guy trying to tell me to do this, do that. But I mean, realistically, it was just a culmination of stress. Pro day was okay until I ran. We know what happened with that. So it just continued. I just felt like that time was so trying, man. And it was just roadblock after hurdle after roadblock after hurdle. But we just found a way to keep it grinded. And I think, again, the singular purpose was still in view. Like I talked about at the beginning, that singular purpose of getting to the NFL and playing was still in view. And no matter what happened, I was going to continue to grind my way through it. And I think just being in Navy, that's the culture you have to live in. You have so much going on. Like you said, you don't have a choice but to grind. You come from, yeah, we got Air Force this week, but I also got exam. I got an electrical engineering exam on Thursday. We play on Saturday. I got to take my exam and then hop on a plane and go to Colorado Springs. And you can't say, well, coach, I had a double E exam. I can't play. I'm not going to play well this weekend. You can't say, well, ma'am, I got the biggest game of the year this Saturday, and I need a break on my double E exam. They both expect you to be at the highest level, and they don't care what the schedule look like. So it was just part of the nature of being in that place, and it just kept stacking, man, kept stacking that mindset, that mentality. So when I got to that level, of where we were and what we were trying to do. No matter what was happening, it was just it sucks. You know, it was some tears, it was some down days, some down nights, but just got to keep grinding, man. And I experienced those same things even after I got in the NFL, with going from team to team and like finally getting my footing in in a place, and like just dealing with all the stuff that comes with it. I think it was all prep for life. I mean, because that's life. You know, you don't ever get you might get a smooth sailing for a little bit, but something's gonna happen. Something's gonna come up where you gotta adjust. You gotta make a plan, and it's like, what you're gonna do? Are you gonna fold, or are you gonna keep moving?
Yeah, let's move the conversation. I think it's so true, because I think it's also like genuinely who you are. Like, you are a competitor. You do have a high standard. You know, you're not you don't have quit in you, and that's great. But like, it's even tough for people that are built like that. You know what I mean? I think sometimes people forget, like, it's even hard for people that are like, have that mentality and have that standard. It's just a matter of saying like, well, what's the other option, right? Am I going to be satisfied if I quit? Am I going to be satisfied if I don't make it? So I might as well go all in. But you've learned, and I don't know if you were like this all the time, but at least when I met you, and still to this day, like you like to be educated about the training process. You'd like to take care of your body. You want to know, like, am I doing this right, or is there a better way? Because if there is, like, I wanna figure out what's there, what's behind in door number 3. And you know, we have a saying in a real, like, you know, we're the one place where the athlete's goal is the coach's agenda, and there will be no stone left unturned to give them everything that they need. Like, when it came to food, I was like, look, you call me, like, you're having trouble with food. I'm like, all right, I'm driving up to you with our private chef's food. Like, we'll do whatever we have to do. But you've really like owned your training process to where, which is a more mature strategy than most people. Like, you haven't relied on me, any coach. You've had some great people around you, you know, growing up with like the Ramseys and Jalen being a hell of an athlete, and you just kind of constantly having that competitive spirit and training, your dad, everybody else. You have all of these things at your disposal, but one of the things that you do is you take the ownership of your training. You want to learn it. You want to research it. You want to see what the right fit. Like, how did that start? Number one, like, why did you have the interest of knowing versus just being told what to do and just doing it? And number two is, like, you know, to be an elite athlete, like how do you take care of your body every day now?
Yeah, you know, I think that inquisitiveness and that curiosity to learn, I think that's something that's always kind of been there, especially with things that I'm passionate about. The type of person I am, I need to know. I want to know it all, and sometimes it can be a detriment, because it's like, shut up and just do the exercise. You know what I'm saying? But I really want, and to be honest with you, sometimes if I'm training with somebody new, like even now, I'm gonna ask you, like, why are we doing this? Like, what? Especially like having some years under my belt of seeing different things and having to research. I'm like, so why are we doing this? Like, I'm not just gonna take what you say for face value, because you can say anything. And I think that's just kind of how I was raised. I want to know why. What's the research behind it? Why do I need to eat this? Why do I need to not eat this? Why do I need to sleep so long? Why do I need to do this type of cardio? How do I get in better shape to get ready for training camp? It's only helping. Like, the more information you have, the more you learn, the better you're going to be. And it no matter what you're doing. And so I think that was definitely something that I just kind of like innately had growing up. And my dad was very thorough. When we were doing our workouts, he would always, like, he broke it down and why we did this and what it was important for. And then you go out and you do it and you see it works. You're like, okay, they know what they're talking about. So let me keep drinking from that fountain and learning as much as I can.
What's that like now as a pro, where you've had a lot of years under your belt, you have your own personal interests, and then you go into environments, even at the highest of levels, right? And you kind of have to listen to people that you know better than. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, this guy's telling you to do this technique, and you're like, that ain't gonna work. Like, I'm right here. I'm like, whether that guy's on press coverage, right, or this is what he's doing. Like, you know what's gonna happen. You know, same thing on the training side. Like, you know what the outcome of this is. How have you navigated that, knowing that there's a lot of emotions to that on both ends, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, people don't really like it when you say that, when they're telling you or trying to get you to do something and you like, that's not really it. That doesn't work. I know it doesn't work, but the key is tact, being tactful in your approach of how it works, and just trying to figure out, like, maybe it's a conversation like, hey, coach or whoever, like, we did it, like, when I was here, this is how we did it and it worked. Or you might do it the way you know and it might work. And even though the coach might say something, he might leave you alone because it's like that works for you. everybody's different. I try to be open to new stuff, but there's things that I know to be true, and I don't compromise on. But there are also some things where it's like, maybe I should have a little bit of an open mind, and you don't know everything, right? And this person, it might be something small that he's saying that I actually might, like that's actually new, and I like that. I'm gonna take that and add that to my Rolodex, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. It ain't really too many exercises or programs that somebody could give me that I haven't seen, heard, or been a part of at some point. It's really hard to reinvent the wheel. But when they start doing some of this like kind of stuff I've never seen, then I'm asking like, so why are we doing this? Like, what application does this have for me to be successful? And if they can give me an answer, then I mean, I'm all for it. Experimenting with that new thing. I think it's foolish to be like stubborn to the point to where you feel like you know everything, because my grandma used to say, only a fool knows everything. And if you have that type of mentality, it's very hard for you to progress. And that's one thing I know.
The curiosity and the interest of knowing what you're a part of is really good. It's a great opportunity for athletes to learn and take ownership of like their own experience. There is a time and a place for an athlete to say, hey, listen, like they got this covered and I could just put my head down and go to work. Right. But there is a level of like trust in that relationship where like I know that they got my back and they have enough experience and perspective to see some things so that if we go down this road, they can make those adjustments. And then there's also the ownership on the athlete side, which is what I think you've done an amazing job of, which is like saying, hey, you've banged on the wall a little bit, made it look like you were doing what they wanted, and you did what you needed to do. And that even with my own learning, working with you, you've done a really good job of doing that, because you show up with this like, hey, I'm ready to go, but I'm still interested in what's, how do I have to play this game? Like knowing your role is a very unique skill that I don't think a lot of people know. I think about this often with when it comes to you, because you do this with a lot of things in your life, but a good representation is just food. Like you like to eat. I like to eat. People that that like to eat well, like, those people, right? Now I remember like post game, you're just like, listen, I ain't gonna put that in my body. Even though the game's over, it's like, I don't need to put that in my body. And like, there's this like, it's not that you don't enjoy yourself. It's just that you respect what your goals are enough to make sacrifices for the daily decisions you have. And I think that's a big deal, because there's the instant gratification that will feel good, but then there's also the component of like, it's taking away from where I want to go long term. Right. And everything you do, like, how to throw down, like you have style, you can look apart, but there's a presentation to Keenan Reynolds, right? And using you a little bit as a brand for a second, to when you're in uniform, you look the part. When you show up and you're in game day, you look the part. When you are off the field, you are dressed the part. Now, when we're kind of hanging and we're cool and the doors are closed and there's no cameras on us, right? Yeah, we're just hanging. And there's you're the locker room guy. You your role. You're cool with that. How important is it to you? Because I've seen that. Like I've seen you literally change your persona, not necessarily your personality by any means, but the way you look. Like a lot of it is like even just the way you dress, right? Like you look the part in all environments. How important is that so that people don't like? Because there's a lot of people who are trying to catch you when you're not in those areas. And I've seen that a lot in your career where people are looking for a moment where they could say, yeah, he's not always so polished, because they expect that. But you're always very authentic, very, very, very authentic at least.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of my experience at the Naval Academy kind of prepared me for that, because a lot of times you get in situations where you're around superior officers, you're around distinguished alumni, and there's so many different people that come in and out, and you kind of have to be on point. And I learned very quickly that Keenan Reynolds is a business when I was transitioning to my pro career. Like, it's a business. And even like as I was trying to get into the NFL, I knew I had to carry myself with the utmost polish, so I couldn't give anybody a reason to say, well, he's not going to be a good representative of the Navy at this national level. I don't think we should give him that opportunity. So I couldn't allow myself to to let the guard down when I was in a situation where the cameras was on and the eyes were peering. I think it's important to still remain yourself. It's important to understand, like, to be normal, like when we're just kicking it or when you're around people, just show them who you are, because that, like you said, that authenticity commands respect. So it's like, okay, this guy he's on his P's and Q's, but he's also a real person. He's not a robot 24/7. Like, he has a personality. He is, he's fun to be around. We're seeing who Keenan Reynolds is or who this person is. I think it's important to have the switch. You got to have a switch in anything you do in life, business, what have you. You got to be able to flip that switch, turn it on, and be a professional, but also remain a professional, if that makes sense. Like, I'm turning on, I'm gonna put my suit on, my tie on, I'm gonna be well groomed, and I'm gonna work the room. But at the same time, when I'm at home, I'm gonna relax, but I'm still the same Keenan in both scenarios, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I'm gonna open it up for some questions. I think the first one I'm gonna go to is so I unmuted you. Go ahead.
So the question I put in the chat was like, what things do you think that you got out of your military education at Naval Academy that, like, you kind of feel like was unique to being at Naval Academy you wouldn't have gotten at, like, a civilian school? Or
The thing that I got that was unique was we did so much in so many different areas. I was a political science major, but I took thermodynamics, I took systems engineering, I took control systems labs, I took electrical engineering, I took cybersecurity. I took a whole lot of stuff, calculus, physics, chemistry, stuff that ain't got nothing to do with political science. And I think that helped me kind of have that confidence in myself that if I go into a new area, if I take the time out and put in the work, that I can conquer whatever that challenge is in whatever new area. And that followed me when it came to changing positions from quarterback to wide receiver as well. So it just helped develop that mindset of being well-versed and having a breadth of knowledge and being able to venture on different paths and still be able to take on whatever that comes your way.
Awesome. How, for you, Keenan, early on in your career, like, hey, you can't play quarterback at the Division I level. That was a conversation, right? You're an athlete, right? You're not quarterback. And then getting into the NFL, things change. Like, how, when people were trying to convince you at the younger level, like when you're at high school going into college, right? Why didn't you give in to that and just go be an athlete somewhere?
Well, I think I would have had somebody gave me the opportunity to do so. There weren't any opportunities for me to transition in that type of way. All the opportunities that were in front of me as far as scholarship, I didn't really have any preferred walk-on offers. All I had was a scholarship offers to play quarterback. And I was already convinced that I was a quarterback, and I was a little stubborn in that way. And I don't know if that may or may not have affected my opportunity to change. Fortunately, worked out well, but the opportunity, there was one school, Memphis, that was like, hey, they had me work out a receiver, and I enjoyed it, honestly. And I thought, scholarship opportunity was going to arise from that. However, the whole staff ended up getting fired. So that kind of fell apart. And so the only path that was in front of me was quarterback. And then when I got to the NFL, they're talking about paying me 7 figures to go catch a football. I'll do whatever you need me to when it comes to that point.
Not bad for a guy that doesn't have good hands, they say.
For real.
Haven't dropped one yet either, right? So you take it. What's the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome? Like, really, like, I think there's a lot of media obstacles, right? There's a lot of things that people will talk about and say, this was incredible adversity that he had to go through and he overcame it. But really, to you, what is the obstacle? Because there's a lot of people that they want to point the lens at something to create a story, but internally there's some things that we always deal with that nobody else knows about. What is that obstacle that you kind of go through?
The obstacle is myself. And I know it sounds like, oh man, it sounds kind of cliche, but it's an internal battle. And I spoke on it earlier about the doubts and insecurity. So, like, being able to overcome that, to allow yourself to expand and grow. It's a common battle. I feel like everybody at some point or another faces, but that was big for me. And like really fighting myself and not getting down on myself because of the, like you said, we talked about earlier, the pressure that I put on myself to reach these insurmountable heights at these, stacked odds. because of that, develops that process of the insecurity and the doubt. So overcoming that, fighting through that, for me, has always been the toughest thing, and was tested tremendously when I got to the NFL and started dabbling in an area I didn't feel like I was an expert in. So that's been the biggest fight. It's been a very self-telling fight, a lot of discovery of who I am and who I want to be as a man, all that.
Absolutely. Perello, I'm going to unmute you. You had a question regarding like breaking down goals.
Yeah, so you talk about having like that ultimate purpose, and obviously like you seem like you're a very structured person, and you have that mindset of an extremely hard worker. And Coach Cav even talks about how people with that mindset still struggle sometimes, but do you set like smaller achievable goals and kind of stay on that track to achieve that singular big purpose?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I didn't mean to confuse anybody saying not to do the shorter goals. I think those are important. I mean, obviously you can't go to the NFL until you go to college ball. You can't go to the NFL until you play well at the college level. So I think the singular purpose was just for a purpose. It's just for the purposes of staying motivated in dark times. But if you also got to understand how to get there. You got to have a roadmap. So what I like to do is I want to see what other people are doing. Who is